Good morning, Bucknutters. It is Thursday, September 19th, 2024. I am Dan Rubin. This is the Bucknuts Morning 5 and change. Apologize for the late start. I see that allows the chat to start with their Cowboys comedy and thinking my dog is on the loose. No, Brad is under the watchful eye of his mama, so we are all good. We got a great show for you today. The Grand Poobah is back to hold court. The Dean, Bill Kurlick, still on vacation. Lord knows what that means, but big football weekend in the shoe and on the Ohio High School gridiron. We will get into it. So first, I've got to tell you about Mando, great sponsor of the show. I had the bar out here yesterday of my Mount Fuji wonderful smelling stuff. It is something special. Probably sure you've heard me talk about it. Goes everywhere. You can use it on your whole body, the whole body. Dermatologist tested. Gentle on all your bits. Controls odor for 72 hours. Clinically proven. Also got some 4 cologne quality scents. I showed you Mount Fuji. You can get unscented if you want to say stealthy on it. I enjoyed it. I love the Mount Fuji. It smells tremendous. Their starter pack is perfect for new customers. Comes with a solid stick deodorant, cream tube deodorant, 2 free products of your choice, like mini body wash and deodorant wipes, and free shipping. Luckily, I have a discount code to help you get hooked on my favorite smelling whole body deodorant on the market. New customers get $5 off a starter pack with our exclusive code. That equates to over 40% off your starter pack. Use code Bucknuts, you know how to spell that, at shopmando.com. Shopmando, SHOPMANDO.com. All right, let's bring in the Grand Poobah himself. Mark has the pictures laid up there for me. However, there's no mystery if we do it that way. So let me refer to this. We had to go to the questions again. We did such a good job of this. You guys said actually on Tuesday that we thought we would ask some more questions for Mark. Let me lock this here so we're set. Lock. All right. First question, general question. Assessment of the offensive line play thus far, and who do you consider your most improved offensive lineman? This question is courtesy of Tony B.
Well, I think I've said this about 4 times in the last couple of weeks. It's hard to use Akron and Western Michigan as a bar to measure anybody. Sure. These guys all look good. They're all dominating them. I was at the Western Michigan game, and one of the first things I noticed is the defensive line for Western was absolutely huge. They didn't move great, and they weren't explosive, but they were big bodies, and Ohio State pretty much had their way with those guys. Seth McLaughlin, I'm kind of keeping an eye on him to see if he's really as good as what I was told in the offseason. I talked to the Alabama coaches, and like I said, there was nothing the matter with him other than the fans kind of running him out of town. Right. So we may have got a premier player there, and I just don't know if I should put that premier, like this guy's going on the first round, as a center interior guy, or where he'll be at the end of the season. Justin Simmons, a lot of, eyes on him.
Josh.
Josh, I'm sorry.
We can't afford Justin Simmons.
He's
just got a new contract. There's a Justin Simmons, I think, that plays defensive tackle in the league that makes about $13 million. So we got to get our NIL going a little better for that. But Josh has a chance to play in the league for sure.
Yeah, that's where there's a lot of scrutiny. Like, will he be, that upper echelon guy? We're not going to know that until he sees a measuring stick type player, until we really see some quality defensive ends that are headed to the league. That'll be where we can measure those guys a little better. Overall, I do like the way the offensive line is playing. I've seen a few spots where people can be critical because there's a few guys that have run free and, maybe beat blocks, but what offensive line in the country isn't having that happen? So let's get maybe 2 or 3 more games down the road before I can really, put a true answer on that question.
I guess year over year, someone will be able to make a better assessment of Josh, and Donovan Jackson hasn't even played yet. So let's get rolling here a little bit.
When I saw that question, I was nervous that I wasn't going to have a real,
right.
An answer you can sink your teeth into. But do you want me to say, yeah, we're killing Akron and Western, and we look great, and then 2 weeks from now, Oregon maybe gives us trouble. And like I said, I don't like to be the proclamator who proclaims, great things until I actually have the proof. And that's what Eye in the Sky is all about. Is message boards is a lot of talk, and there's a lot of people pointing fingers, but let me try to be the one that puts the here's what it is. See it with your own 2 eyes and judge it for this, not for the rumors and innuendos.
And we call it Buck Eye in the Sky because I'm from a time when I had a coach who would tell you the eye in the sky don't lie, meaning just hit somebody so you don't get yelled at on film. All right. Good question for you, my friend. From Garwood 72, what position is the deepest for 26 in Ohio? For those of you late to the party, Mark is the premier source of Scouting Ohio and the #1 guy for Ohio high school talent. So what position? You don't need to go into names here. Let's just give us, or maybe 2 names or so, but give us the position deepest in 26. I know what everyone hopes it is.
Yeah, I just told you I'm the guy that has to provide proof. So let's provide a few names when we go into this. I think Bill Kurlick dubbed these guys the Big Four in this offensive line class. And
so it is so you think the deepest position is offensive line?
I think there's 2 positions, but I think the offensive line is like you said. I think there's one everybody wants to hear about. These guys are almost like a dead horse. We've beat these names. So if you don't know these names, you're kind of behind the times here with Buckeye recruiting. Maxwell Riley from Avon, William Conroy from St. Ignatius, Sam Greer from Hoban, and Adam Guthrie would be the 4th from Miami Trace. I'm going to expand that a little bit. And we talked about that, Tuesday. Andrew Baggett from Chardon has been down to Ohio State. Jameer Perez, the Glenville offensive defensive lineman, was recently down at Ohio State. So there's going to be, and I'm going to look at Bishop Watterson, 6'7", 270-pound Pete Aglitas. I'm going to go see him on Friday night. He's going to be up at Chardon. So I get to see 2 of the guys on that list to see if they belong in that upper tier. There's a kid at Sandusky Perkins. So there's 6 names. Now, linebacker seems to be the next deepest position. Jacoby Clapper from St. Xavier already has an Ohio State offer. Storm Miller from Strongsville already has an Ohio State offer. Cam Thomas from Lakota West could be one of the next guys up. He's an edge player, kind of a hybrid guy off the edge, linebacker, defensive end. And then over at Glenville, Sincere Johnson is a guy we've talked about a bunch who's lost some weight, and I'm sure we'll chronicle him towards the end of the year. Some of these other positions, wide receiver, there's a couple guys we've talked about, Justin Hodge at Menor and Peyton Cook. But when you say this depth, I think they mean depth for Ohio State, not depth for the entire state. So there are some positions that are really deep, but Ohio State talent, I'm not sure. I think I'm going to go to Painesville Harvey on Friday night to check out Alston. Sean Alston. He just picked up a Florida offer. So let's go see how, if he's going to be the top running back in this class. And, it doesn't seem like a deep class at running back. He might be the guy we're looking at, but it's only, week 3 or week 4 in Ohio high school football right now.
A Florida offer is always nice. I don't know who his coach is going to be if he were to choose that school, but we, of course, we'll follow that. All right, Mark Fox.
He's got a pretty decorated – he's one of those kids with like 20 offers. Then the offers just seem to trickle a little bigger, each one that rolls in. And, this is a little bit off topic, but Chaz Coleman from Warren Harding just picked up Penn State today.
Yep. And
he's a quarterback that's going to be a tight end, defensive end in college. Tell you what, he's really blown up since the Ohio State camp. He went there and worked out as an Ohio State 10 and started getting offers. And then since that day till today, he's become a Power 5 player. So keep that name on the list for 2025.
All right, Mark. Fox R 2001 clearly has himself some fandom with the Grand Poobah. Maybe some personal info about Mark, as long as it's not about me. It sounds like he played football in his younger days. What level, high school and college, and what did you play? I assume he means position. How did you get into the recruiting analyst field? How long have you done Scouting Ohio? How big of a client base do you have in terms of schools that buy your service? Lastly, you get more excited seeing a top high school matchup or when Ohio State plays a big-time team? I'll go take a nap. You can answer this for the next 20 minutes.
I was going to say, I'll take the next 20 minutes, and I'll sign off when we're done here. I don't know how many people love talking about themselves that much, but I'll try to, give history. And I really, this podcast over the past year or so, I think we're up to 100 episodes or more. The people in the chat here have become almost like friends. I recognize the names and icons. So it's fair that they want to know about us. And nothing special. Grew up in Canfield, still live in Canfield, played at Canfield High School, played tight end and defensive end. And I think I was recruited for defense, but ended up playing tight end at Kent State. I sheepishly say that Kent State might have been the worst college football program in the country while I was there. In 5 years, I was 5-49-1 for a career record. That's 5 wins in 5 years. So I like to look at that as I can look in the mirror and go to work every day in a bad situation, and you can trust me to show up. There's a lot of internal fortitude that was built during those days. So that was cool. Playing tight end has obviously given me insight into a lot of things: offensive line play, route combinations, quarterback play. So a tight end was kind of a cool position to play to understand the entire offense. And I think that helps me now when I'm breaking down film. Moved back to Canfield after college and coached at Canfield High School for a while, did the 7th and 8th grade and freshman teams. And that's how Scouting Ohio started. That was back before YouTube in like 2003, 2004. And there was a dad in town that could put videos online when we were on dial-up. So it took me all night to upload a video. And I say I had a Forrest Gump-like beginning where I was in the right place, the right time. Mr. Bucknuts has a nice little part in that story where back in the JJ huddle and, Bucknuts going to ESPN when Scouting Ohio first started in 2005, the videos kind of meshed real well with what Mr. Bucknuts was doing. And we kind of had a relationship there that we've obviously built off of over the years. And he really had a big hand in being the confidence in starting the recruiting business. It was out there, but until you have someone get behind you and say, hey, I see this idea too. And so I got to give him his props. But yeah, we have about 70 or 80 clients now.
Mark.
Yes.
Can I make one point?
Yes, sir.
I happened to be there under Mr. Bucknuts' employ and helped with this whole thing. So I want to make one point clear. One of the main goals of starting Scouting Ohio, you deserve credit for this, was you were not a shyster. At this time back in the day, a lot of these services were popping up and charging kids an exorbitant amount of money and families who didn't know what the F was going on. Mark really started this as a labor of love to provide a service to these guys they did not have to pay for. So he's not bringing that part up, which is pretty much the basis of the start. And I wanted you deserve credit for that. And I remember arguing with Lee early on about the business model and saying this Porter guy doesn't know what the F he's doing. And he was right. So go ahead.
Yeah, and you're right. That I just didn't think I should charge the kids that I was coaching and working with. And, being from Youngstown, it's a small community. And I'll shout out some Dan Reardon over at Ursuline. He played high school football at Canfield with me. Coach Bayek was over at Hubbard at the time. He was my coach there. PJ Fecco was at Cardinal Mooney. I played football with him in 7th and 8th grade. So when Scouting Ohio started, it was a lot of people I had known from my past football experiences that kind of put the wind between those sails. And I don't think I could ever go to those guys and say, hey, you need to pay me to help your kids get recruited. Luckily, we learned that the colleges would pay. Like I said, very Forrest Gump-like to just take it and run with it and keep going and going and seeing
That's
where
the part I remember the most.
Yeah.
When we had the epiphany, it was like, wait a minute. This needs to generate some revenue. Who would pay for the information? And good Lord, tell them who subscribes. We were not going to tell them how much it costs.
Yeah.
I remember being part of the pricing situation and being like, no way. And they do. So tell them what schools rely on you for recruiting information out of Ohio.
I would say anybody within a 6 to 8 hour drive. And I have a commitment list on the front of Scouting Ohio that has the commitments for the last 7 or 8 years. And when you look at all those names, whether it's D1, D2, D3, they're all in that nest of a 6-8 hour drive. Anything out of a 6-8 hour drive is a spot recruit. Well, maybe they'll come in for one Ohio player every other year because they need to fill a position. But there's a certain group or type of school that stays in Ohio. Big Ten, Kentucky's the SEC school because they're the farthest north. The MAC, tons of the Ivy League schools. I think every Ivy League school, because we have a GPA element to our service where we can help them find the academic prospects. So that client base of the D2, D3, NAIA, Ivy League, Patriot, that really was the part that we didn't foresee 15 years ago coming in. We were kind of, let's put out a top 100. Let's do Dwayne's top 100 or 200. And I remember when the top 100 went to 200, and right now it's a top 2,000. So, it's certainly grown over the years. And I'd say that, the client base, 60, 70, 80 colleges, depending on the year, depending on when coaches move in and out of positions and, who's really hot in Ohio. But it's really been, I pinch myself a lot and say, I can't believe that this idea has gone on this long, and the traction that it has and the future that it has. This really is a big time business, and so many people are interested in not only Ohio State prospects, but other prospects. And, this podcast, I don't think I ever thought my face would be in front of so many people for so long. And yeah, the road that I have been on has been truly remarkable, truly a Forrest Gump like ride, I guess.
Just I want to add to that a little bit. Well, the reason that these Division III and Division II schools and the Ivy League schools, last time I checked, none of them are. That 6 to 8 hour window gets pushed a little bit. Is this way they don't have to travel? Those staffs don't have the travel budget that a Division I school has. People would be amazed if they saw how much money is spent on scouting at the Division I highest level. I think they'd be equally surprised at how little is spent at the Division III schools and how those guys have to elbow grease it. So this is a tremendous service for these people. And I'll tell you a little funny story. I don't know if it was 20 years ago, close to 20 years ago, I got a call from these guys. My wife wanted to move to North Carolina, and these guys were starting a business in Cary, North Carolina. I sat down with them and like, do you know who Mark Porter is? We're trying to do that in North Carolina. This just in, scouting North Carolina does not exist. Your boy didn't take that gig, and thankfully we are here. Go ahead, Mark.
I remember there was a group from Cary, North Carolina that had the producers of The Real World and all kinds of money. And, and there were other companies that came in back then that, we're going to crush you and you don't know what you're doing, this mom and pop idea. And, just to keep talking, I know we can talk about this for a while. I think being the mom and pop, like you're saying, respectable, and everybody knows it's Mark, and there's not 7 of me, and there's not 8 other scouts, and which one is going to answer the phone when I call today. I think it's a relationship-driven business where, I like to refer to myself as I'm a grad assistant. I do a lot of that dogged grad assistant work where, data entry, traveling, driving the game, stuff that, I can save time for those coaches, and their time is way more valuable than anything else on earth right now. So that's really what the service is being a grad assistant, saving time, and like you're saying, being a respectable person that people can trust with. And I think you see that. I mean, when I do rankings and evaluations here, boy, I don't want to anoint anyone before it's time to anoint. And I'm real careful because that's why guys trust me. I stay away from the hype, and you don't see me posting on, Twitter, hey, I just found another 5-star, just found the best tackle, because you don't know. And I think that's the one thing I've learned is, as much as we watch all these 5-stars come into Ohio State, only 11 of them spit out there on the field at a time, and, not all 110. So there are going to be guys that don't live up to it. It's, and I was thinking about this the other day. It's my job, I think, to try to kind of figure out who's a bust and who's a star beforehand. I think that's what people want to hear from me is, Tavian St. Clair going to be a first-round pick, or is he going to be a 6th-round pick or a bust? And I'm the one who's going to kind of, file that edge down before they get to school.
We were the first ones to tell you about Tavian St. Clair. That's kind of the low-hanging fruit now in terms of what goes into it. And I'm telling you, Scouting Ohio does tremendous work with the top guys in the state. But to be fair, the top 10 to 11 guys in the state are so good that they would probably end up somewhere good anyway. This service, what it does is, if you want to play football in college and you're capable, this is the service to use. There's a ton of people playing college football that aren't going to the NFL, that play in Division II, My son lived with some Division III football players at Denison. I wouldn't want to play against him. So there's good players everywhere, man. This service allows people to extend the dream, which is just an incredible service. Now, listen, Mark will tell you, didn't start out so smooth. We had some rocky parts at the beginning, financing the whole thing and getting it off the ground. So just like Bucknuts, having Mr. Bucknuts there at the beginning certainly helped the rockier times. And there are many of us who are
grateful,
educating our children and are very grateful off these sites. So,
and like
you can tell that people have been here for a while because we all kind of rely on each other because we've all been through the wars together. I mean, Mark and Bill and Dave and I have all been together now for, good Lord, long enough that I don't want to admit it publicly. But I'm very proud of that. In fact, that our staff has been the most consistent. And the elbow grease factor of someone like Mark is really unparalleled. So we will stop talking about ourselves and talk about something else you guys want to hear about. Sex. Sorry, I got to do it. This is what I do here. This is how we pay the bills. Joy Mode, the Pat Murphy special. He is their #1 sponsor. Chance you're going to see Pat Murphy on the box at some point, but negotiating still going on for that. I think I speak for most men when I say we want to have better sex, and for the sake of our partner, we may need to have better sex. The issue, you know what it is. Over-the-counter pills contain unregulated chemicals, suggest unsafe doses, and include the risk of several other health problems. None of that's good. So go to tryjoymode.com/Bucknuts and get 20% off with code Bucknuts at checkout. All ingredients have been assessed in peer-reviewed journals. All ingredients studied and researched in humans. Not me and Mark, however. That's 20% off and free shipping with code Bucknuts at tryjoymode.com/Bucknuts. Great sex solved naturally. So you see, as we rise up in business, we have I'd sell some ads. But all right, let's get back to the questions. We got some great ones. Enough about us. Let's get back to the football. Marcus. Oh, this is a good one. This is a powder keg of a question. Any chance RJ Day can make it as a scholarship quarterback at Ohio State University? My understanding is RJ, of course, you know the last name. I believe he is a sophomore at Columbus DeSales. Is that correct?
Nailed it.
And I'll say this. I saw him play in an AAU tournament about 2 or 3 years ago and was like, this kid's not very tall. He has grown considerably. He looked to me like he's over 6 foot now. That was off the hoof, though. Your thoughts, Marcus?
Yeah. How do I say this? When you're trying to be the quarterback at Ohio State, that is the alpha of all alphas. I had that conversation with my son. Hey, you're going to go to an Ohio State game, and this might not be a place for you because this is a place for genetic freaks and genetic, the
best of the best.
The best of the best. So saying someone, are they not, an Ohio State quarterback, there's no shame in that game. RJ has, like you said, he's up to about 6'1". Let's see where he tops off. If he gets to 6'2" or 6'3", that puts him more in that national conversation. Like right now, I have him as a Big Ten kid. Upper Big Ten, will he be Penn State, Notre Dame, Michigan, Ohio State? That's going to be tough because that national board is brutal, okay? Now, RJ has been going to the Ohio State camps since 7th, 8th, 9th grade. He's been being pushed. I have taken that blueprint and put my kid into that and said, go early, go often, get knocked around early and often, because I have used RJ Day as kind of my, template. RJ has come out of all those reps looking extremely polished and extremely developed. That's why he was starting as a freshman. His motion, his delivery, and the way he steps in the throws, he's really got a timing to his drops and stuff like that. So he put himself light years ahead of other young quarterbacks with that type of stuff. Now it's just a matter of will his body catch up to all of his skill, because he has the skill, the knowledge, reading the deep. I mean, how could you not with the resources you have, available to you? I mean, I know he's over at that WAC with his teammates using the indoor facility, throwing, using quarterback gurus. So I'm obviously going deep on this because I know a lot about RJ. I've been to see him play a bunch. I saw him a couple weeks ago, and I have used his blueprint for my own family. I just don't know if he'll ever be able to beat out the national board. Will he be 6'5"? Will he be a quarterback that runs 4.6 or under? I bet you he runs 4.8. I bet you he's pretty fast. I just don't know. And that's a tough question because he's only a sophomore. Next year at this time is probably when I'll be able to say for sure. But I'd say you can tell by my voice, and even for my own son, boy, that's a big ask. Genetically, physically, to go take down the top person in the country. So is Ryan Day going to be one of the top guys in the country? Not sure. I'm sure I should say RJ, but yeah, he'll be listed in maybe the top 20. I just don't know if he'll ever get to that top spot. But we're a year away from knowing the true answer.
Just to give a little meat on the bone there, think about every high school football game that goes on a Friday night in the United States, and Ohio State's goal is really to get the best quarterback. That's a very high, but you're talking about the best quarterback in the United States. And let's also add this. There was a point in time when Ohio State did not have the pro players to prove is a bad choice of word, to show that they were, when your quarterback is the most valuable football player on planet Earth, CJ Stroud, because he is, if everyone was available right now, I believe he would get the most money. Justin Fields is coming along, so think about what you're dealing. Justin Fields and CJ Stroud are two of the best athletes in the United States. So that's a big ask. Now, he does have the connections. We do see that.
There's a second part of this that I wonder this myself. If RJ said, hey, I want to go play at Ohio State. I want to go play with my dad. I don't care if they bring in Tavian and 3 more Tavians. I'm going there.
Right.
I actually posed this question to my son. What if you would walk on here? Think of the training you would get going against that first-string defense. And what I was thinking as I was asking this question is, Joe Burrow did that for 3 years. Never took a snap here, just practiced with these guys. Just went there and, was he anything special? 6'2", wasn't the fastest, wasn't, this elite, whatever you want to say it. And he's doing pretty good.
Is he?
So there is a thinking inside of me that if you go there, you pay your dues. It might not happen for a couple years, but let's picture RJ as a redshirt junior. What do you think that kid's going to look like then? He may be good enough to lead an Ohio State offense by pure moxie, swagger, just knowing what he's doing, understanding the reads and the concepts, processing things so fast. Think Drew Brees. Think guys like that you don't think much of because they're physically not this dominating player, but boy, the will and the desire and things like that I can't measure. You wonder if that question, it was posed, will he be a scholarship quarterback for Ohio State? That means he's the number 1 quarterback in the country. Can he play at Ohio State? Whew. That might be a little more interesting concept.
The coach's son is not a myth. If you look at guys who are outliers, if you look at, shocker, Brock Purdy. Okay, coach's son
nailed it.
Bobby Hurley, coach's son. It goes across sports, and here's a real reason for that. I can just tell you, for example, if I was the basketball coach, you know how much more gym access I would have had for my son if they just are at the gym all the time. Some of it is just that. Do you know the town in the United States that produces the most Olympians? It's Steamboat, Colorado. You know why? Because they have a long jump for skiing. There's 3 in the country or something like that, and they all learn how to do it. So if you're getting to go to the gym every day with the coach, you have an advantage, and that actually works in the long run. All right.
Yeah, and I hate betting against kids at this age. I hate saying they can't do something. Again, I said it last week because this broadcast will be snippeted and replayed. Mark Porter said so-and-so can't do this, or Mark Porter said so-and-so is the next, evolution of Christ. So I really try to temper these things and more lay out the framework for what would have to happen for these kids. So that is an interesting question to see, coach's son and how far can he take it.
Let's answer some of these questions here because Mark, everyone wants an update on your son in general. There's a question. Does he play for the parochials? Who does he play for? How is his leg? Yeah. Are you thinking of holding him out of school for an entire year so he doesn't lose eligibility? I know that's a kidding, but go ahead.
Yeah.
You thought about it.
It is as brutal as it could be.
Tell them what happened again for those who don't remember.
First game, 5th play of the year, took a shot on the knee, leg area, fractured the femur, and tore the ACL. The brutal part about that is he can't do anything about the ACL till the fracture here, so that pushes off his surgery for 6 or 8 more weeks. So that adds 2 months to the healing time, which is already a long healing time. So as he starts to heal up and feel better physically, mentally, I think anybody who's been through this type of stuff knows that it's a lot of long days where you can't do anything except for think about what you're doing. And I don't wish that on any athlete, especially a 14-year-old kid. It's really tough on a young, how do I say it? He's not mature enough to understand that one day he will be good again. But right now, all he does is live that day to day. I can't do anything. So I appreciate you guys asking. I think people who are asking know how tough this is for anybody.
My son had a medical red shirt last year in college. It is the least publicized aspect of sports to me. It has the biggest effect. If you gave me the injury report for the NFL every week for real, I would be a much better gambler. And behind closed doors, every single team is dealing with injuries all the time. And it is an emotional thrust on the athlete because shocker. And, for Mark's son, I don't think it's news to say he probably put in more work than your average 9th grade football player. And to have that rug pulled out, I know for my child, it's a mental grind, man. These kids, these young boys, a lot of their definition of success is through sports when they're that good. And it's a challenge. Now, he will build some thick skin, callous up, and be tougher because guess what? You step back on the field again, guess what there's a chance of? We've gone over this. Look, man, you may get hurt on the first play of the game again. You got to be ready for that. You have no control over that. Worry about the constants. The variables may get you.
I think, and I'll go into what I've personally shared with him. I said, you want to know the day you became a man? Right now. These are man emotions. These are man emotions. These are man feelings. This is man heartache stuff. This is pain that men feel. This isn't little kid stuff anymore. So, like, this was his, like they say, the Indians, to be a man, you got to go slapping the bear in the face and live to tell about it. You go through an injury like this and you live to tell about it. You got some, blood in the game and some skin in the game now. It's real. So, yeah, I appreciate all the thoughts from everybody. It's obviously something that it's touched everybody in some way.
Sure.
So there you go.
I saw there's some talk about CJ Stroud talking to Caleb Williams. For you Bears fans, that's going to be a roller coaster. Talented kid, but Caleb, I don't know about Caleb. Caleb's from my hometown, so I have a little bit of an affection for him. But, yeah, if anyone knows about the grind here, Daniel Sanchez, Team Sanchez, we are very happy they are part of this podcast. We may even have him on here someday. Mark, have you ever heard of Colin Boff, a quarterback from Canal, Winchester, Harvest Prep High School? Is he a D1 talent?
I have heard of him, but I have to watch him. I saw that question pop up, and yeah, I told someone today, like, I'm getting kids sending me their first 3 and 4 games, and I kind of had a copy and paste reply to all of them. I don't start shoveling snow when it starts snowing. I go out there and get the driveway when it's done, so I don't have to do it twice. And so with a lot of these films coming in early, if I watch them all right now, you know what these kids are going to want me to do week 10? Watch it again. You didn't see all my weeks 5 through 10 stuff. You got to watch all that. So I peek at things now, and there's hot things I want to see. But for the most part, I'll sit there after the season and go through 200 quarterbacks and, give them a fair assessment. But that'll be a name that I definitely check out.
Definitely a little different for the Ohio State staff because some staffs do it differently. I can't remember how Ohio State does it, but they'll have a huge sit down after 3 weeks of the high school season and try and get as many new names on there. Because keep in mind, kids grow. You can be a 16-year-old and be a nothing and be a 17-year-old and be one of the best players in the country. That's what makes this thing so difficult. It's kind of like don't miss on the outlier, but also you need to get every outlier.
One of my mottos has become first isn't best and first isn't right. And just what you said, Dan, junior year, senior year is when you have a truer evaluation. You want to pop offers to these sophomores that pop up first. You might be right. You might, but that might be a kid who's been reclassified, might have a little extra juice. It's a trickier, spot to be in there.
Yeah, I'm actually going to weigh in on this. There's a lot of chatter about Bryce Young, how he got benched with the Panthers after 2 weeks. And the biggest issue he has is, one, he's my size. This is not going to change. And you can go back to the tape. Dave and I used to giggle about this. I have no idea why someone would pick Bryce Young over CJ Stroud. Now, it certainly doesn't help our guy in Carolina that CJ had the best rookie year of all time and has picked up where he left off. So, I don't know, man. That's tough. I would also say this, and I think this is kind of what happened. I can make an argument with Dwayne Haskins and the late, great Dwayne Haskins, and also what happened to Justin Fields. When you're the quarterback at Alabama, I would guess that Bryce Young took the field, 30 times? How many times did he take the field when he did not have the best supporting cast? Once?
And how many of those games were real games? Where
I'm just
Alabama
saying he
was actually tested, where he had to show up 5 or 6, maybe 8 of that number.
Sure. And he showed up, but just look at the comparison factor. You go from being every snap, you have the most talent around you and probably, if not the best coaching staff, close to it. You were coached your entire career by a guy who's widely regarded as the best football coach of all time. Now you go to Carolina, and of the 32 teams, how many do you have better talent than? Maybe 0. And now you're not throwing to a guy who's a mismatch on every. So it's impossible. Dwayne Haskins went from Ohio State, which was under Herb, a buttoned-up structure from a football standpoint, with Ryan Day as his quarterback coach, throwing to NFL receivers. He went to the Washington, I think they were still the Redskins at the time, which were a moribund franchise, poorly run. The head coach didn't want him. He did not have good receivers and a terrible offensive line. Apply that to any other job or any other situation, you're not going to do as well. Now, here's what happens. There are some guys who can do it because you're talking about the best league on the earth. Joe Burrow stepped into a crappy situation and was great from day one. Keep trying to draft Joe Burrow. There's 3 on earth that can do that. That's very, very difficult. CJ, to give him credit, I believe the Texans last year lost more games to injury from their offensive line than any team in the modern era. Okay? But he does have a great coach. He does have a really good receiver. Still, that's an outlier. What's hurting Bryce Young is Carolina picked the wrong guy. And that's not how they did that. How the mentality to get to where they were is crazy. I said this to Dane Brugler at the time when he was. I do not understand how you could rate a guy at 5'10" better than a guy at 6'3". It's the biggest, baddest dudes on the earth. I have worked many NFL games and been in the locker room afterwards. If you think you are a human being, you're not compared to these people. They're different, man. It's the best, toughest football league on the earth. Why would you want a 5'10" quarterback? It doesn't make any sense. I'm sorry, Mark. The floor is yours.
No, I go back a year, and I was not a Bryce Young guy before the draft. I thought that was an easy, like you're saying. I thought it was obvious, and and I'm not like I said. I like to call my shots like that, but on the other hand, I thought Caleb Williams is supremely talented. Like, his arm talent is up there with anybody. The throws he makes and the spiral coming out of there, and it's as good as anything. I read what the take was when CJ Stroud came up to him after the game, and it seemed like they said Caleb didn't want anything to do with him, was actually kind of shying away from it. And I saw the interaction. He seemed to take the advice. But every quarterback in this league, what do they do after every game? Go see the other quarterback. There's a fraternity there, and for Caleb to shun another young guy or to kind of brush off his advice, and it didn't sound condescending. It just sounded like CJ, hey, we wanted to give him a few words of advice after a game, but I worry Caleb has a mental, component that we don't understand yet. And I watched him on the, and I don't want to get into a Caleb Williams thing, the Bears Hard Knocks, and kind of saw him interact with his coaches and players, and it seemed really genuine and really positive. But interactions like this kind of throw that, thinking into the wood chipper.
All right, brass tacks. Drew Brees, Russell Wilson, and Kyler Murray are outliers. I completely agree. But lest we forget, Drew Brees got replaced by Phillip Rivers. They weren't happy with the Chargers. They sent him packing. Russell Wilson was not even the guy they expected to be the quarterback. They signed Jeff Flynn in free agency out of Seattle.
Matt Flynn.
Matt Flynn, right. He had played for the Packers as a backup, kid out of LSU, older fella. And he didn't materialize, and they got Wilson. And Kyler Murray agreed. Keep this in mind. I don't know if people remember this. For the first year and a half of Kyler's career, and I know he transferred, he was going to go play baseball. He was a top baseball pick. I think he didn't even attend school on scholarship. I think he paid for himself because he took the money. So, yes, they are outliers. And
you don't take a number one pick as an outlier. And Bryce Young is an outlier within that group. He doesn't have the speed of Kyler Murray. He doesn't have
size.
Or size of Russell
Kyler
Wilson.
Murray is a mobile fire hydrant.
Yeah, I mean,
I know they list the height and weight.
Yeah, I mean, he's got some Barry Sanders in him when he gets out in the open field because he's so small. He can hit it on a dime and cut. So, I mean, I didn't think Bryce Young was as talented as those guys, and it's in the comments already. Play at Alabama, you're going to get inflated. You're going to look better. Like you said, you have all those guys around you, and that just doesn't always translate to the NFL because you got to do some heavy lifting on your own in the NFL.
It's funny. The knock on CJ, one of them was he had too much talent around him. And that's a hard one to determine there. You know what I'm saying? Because that's just hard to figure out. Oh, this is a point I want to make. Tell me if you guys agree with this. This is a Dan theory. All right. We're going to end with this. Shout out to from Matt Reynolds. Shout out to our J.K. Dobbins. The kid is lighting up in the big league. Yes. And which is great because having to watch J.K. play with the Ravens on one leg was hard to watch, man. Very impressed he was able to stick it out there, but that looked painful. Here's my theory on J.K. Dobbins. You know who he plays for, Mark?
The Chargers. Harbaugh.
You know who their head coach is?
Harbaugh, yeah.
There are so many Ohio State alumni in California and LA. I believe Harbaugh went after J.K. Dobbins so that the alumni in California from Ohio State, and I'll guarantee you it's in the thousands, would still support the Chargers, and he could get off to a good start with them. Because I know I would not have done that, but then I got a chance to go see CJ get it done. So that's my theory. Shocker, I have conspiracy theories as they apply to Michigan, even though I'm glad you said situation.
I'm glad you said conspiracy on that because that's a pretty far reach.
Mark, what are you trying to say?
I think he just stole his brother's backfield when he took Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins. He kind of said, hey, you got some new guys over there, Derrick Henry. You don't need these guys. And I think the recommendation was glowing. Hey, just take my old backfield. They're fine.
Yep. Matt Reynolds gets the final word there. Harbaugh is not going anywhere, people. And good Lord, you're going to get to hear people genuflect on him if the team does well. However, I'll tell you what. Do you guys notice there's a few people missing from the chat? There's a few people who had not nice things to say to us in the chat. Your Michigan fans, they're not here anymore. They are gone. They are not coming to listen to what we learned live from the game we lost to them last year. And I'll say this, they are headed for an interesting weekend. Mark, your thoughts as we head into the weekend. We'll talk a little high school, but your thoughts on Michigan USC briefly.
I mean, you can't be mad at them for the tough schedule coming out of the gate. I know that's probably what they're criticizing Ohio State for, but they might be in for another one. I mean, this could be another loss right out of the gate. USC has the speed and I know they might not have the defense to hold up to Michigan. Michigan maybe runs all over them a little bit, but you lose this one, and like you said, long weekend doesn't describe it for those guys. Yeah,
that would be also – I think it would also give USC some credit. And you know what also help us with? It would lessen the value of Texas's win there, which everyone jumped Ohio State for, which would be good for us. We expect Ohio State to deal very well with Marshall. The Thundering Herd coming in for a noon game. Ohio State coming off a bye, 80 degrees and sunny. If you have Ohio State players and you play college fantasy, I'd be spraying it out. Where will you be headed this weekend, Mark?
I gotta go to the Marshall head coach. I caught a portion of his press conference where he offered all of the Ohio State Buckeyes free biscuits for life if they transfer to Marshall. Apparently they have a deal with a restaurant down there where they eat free. And that was his ploy to recruit Ohio State kids. So you can see the difference in NIL.
Well, let's be honest. Biscuits are delicious. A good biscuit, woo, that might sway me. If it was even and it came down to the biscuits, that might sway me. Not an elite athlete.
Ohio State's just going to open up one of those restaurants on campus. That'll solve that problem. No one will be leaving for the biscuits.
I'll say this. When I used to go cover, when I was in Virginia, I would go cover the state championship game. Sometimes they were in Roanoke, and they had a fast food restaurant called Biscuitville. Everything on a biscuit. It is delicious, but I digress. Go ahead. Your thoughts on Ohio State, Marshall, and then where you'll be this weekend.
Yeah, you got to put your money in the swear jar for saying digress.
That's all right.
I want to see Alston play, the running back at Painesville Harvey. I'm probably going to go see him first half. And then the second half, Chardon and Bishop Watterson play, which I just said the 5th and 6th ranked offensive lineman on my board in 26th. We're going to go see those guys. Pete Iglesias and Andrew Baggett from Chardon would be the 2 offensive linemen. Of course, there's other players on those teams, but those are the highlights. The Marshall game shouldn't be much of, just a nice tailgate event down at Ohio State, drama-free, should be a good win. Looking forward to breaking it down and, pointing out some more of Chip Kelly's little wrinkles. I think that's what we're seeing the most of in these early films is Chip Kelly kind of hiding basic concepts and using formations to run things over and over.
Deetra, I was worried there because she said, Daniel, you like a good biscuit and gravy plate. My name is Dan. Anyone who calls me Daniel, that means I'm in trouble. But I think she's referring to Devin's Pops. And let's have Devin avoid the biscuits and gravy until after the season. We don't need to carry that extra weight, even though I doubt he's seeing many balls thrown his way. Matt Reynolds goes with Ohio State 66, Marshall 7. How did they get 7? We appreciate you guys stopping by. Have a good one, Bucknutters.